You are listening to Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour, a podcast released on the first 3 Wednesdays of the month. Family crisis, relationship crisis, addiction crisis, no two crisis situations are the same. They vary by family, individual, and relationship. They can encompass complex family dynamics, emotional distress, anger issues, and entitlements, and often involve substance abuse. This podcast addresses these issues and others surrounding the addiction epidemic currently plaguing this country and the world. There is hope and help.
Are you stuck, scared, or unsure of what to do next? If a situation with a loved one, spouse, or even a child has started to spiral, possibly becoming dangerous or threatening, it's time to seek help. My name is Scott H. Silverman. I help families navigate crisis situations. I'm the person you turn to in order to get you and your loved ones unstuck.
Welcome back to the show. This is Scott H. Silverman's Happy Hour. This is Michael Glenn Moore. I'm Scott's co-host. Scott, why don't you tell us a little bit about your book that you just had released and how it's doing?
Well, thanks, Michael, and good to see you. And I understand you're taking a day off next week. Unbelievable. You know,
I know it. I've got family coming in town, so I'm
you union people, you just structure your time off. You know,
we've all had our vaccine, so we haven't hugged each other in so long. It's going to be nice to.
Oh yeah, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Anyway, no, I just had to cancel somebody that was looking forward to recording next week, but she'll get over it. Anyway, but thank you, Michael. I want to make sure I share with everybody how powerful your volunteerism and your technical support is every week with the podcast. And it's pretty clear based on those who know me, my technical skills, that there's no way I'd be doing this on my own. So welcome everybody to Scotty Silverman's Happy Hour. It's really nice to see you again. What an interesting year we're in. It's just the beginning of June as a footnote. And according to our governor in the state of California, we're going to be having our big coming out party on the 15th, but there's some new restrictions I just heard about yesterday. So we'll see how it goes. So anyway, again, you all should have my number by now. And if you don't, I want to give it to you again. It's 619-993-2738. Please call or text me anytime. And if you can't remember the number and you forgot to write it down, Scott H. Silverman, it's over my head. Email me anytime. And if I can be a resource for you and your family, let me know. Let me do it. So the book, The Opioid Epidemic, just came out a week ago. It's on Amazon. You can get it on Your Crisis Coach. Tom's got a copy. I understand he got it yesterday, and he's so stubborn he hasn't even read it yet. So, he got 24 hours, but we'll be sure and motivate him after today's podcast. So I want to tell you a little bit about what I know about Tom. And then I'm going to read this 47-page bio that he sent me so everyone knows everything they can. Tom and I met actually in an anonymous program. And Tom is one of those people, I'm not reading this, but Tom is one of those people that has a heart that is so big, it gets to the room before he does. He volunteers, he supports, he gets there early, he stays there late, he takes everybody's phone call. And he has been one of those people that when people come to the program, of recovery, and they want to know, what is it like? Who should I shadow? Who should I look at? Who should I emulate? Who should I mirror? Who's one of the people that really make a difference, not only in the rooms, but in their life and with their family, but I should look at? And Tom Sayer is one of those guys, and we're all pretty lucky to have him here today. It took almost 9 months. I had to go through a series of lawyers, his publicists, and his advertising people just to secure the time today. So I'm going to read you a couple of things. This is formal, but Tom, I love you, brother, and I really appreciate you being here. Hang on, you don't get to say anything yet until I'm done. So let's see. So I don't have a very salacious story he starts with. Mine is more of he stopped in time story. You get the gift. I have a little bottom envy for those with a much better drunk log than mine. I was pretty much still having fun for the most part. It wasn't horribly dark, and my consequences were still somewhat manageable. But I was on the track that was going to take me to where I am today. I was heading for disaster. I came to a fork in the road. I ended up going in a new direction. The elevator was going down. I just got off before it hit an extremely low bottom. He grew up in Point Loma, right here in San Diego. Nice upper middle class family, and he loaned me $20 once. I'm sorry, I'll pay you back soon. I can't remember when it was, but I sure have some interest. Went to private schools his whole life. Partied hard in high school and college, but also studied hard and got good grades. Graduated from Cornell University in 1981 with a degree in hotel administration. After a year in the hospitality industry, he went to Cal Western Law School. At this time, he worked so hard, he could party hard. Drugs and alcohol were a daily part of his life, except perhaps for the first year in law school, where I worked really hard and partied very little. He had very few consequences up until this point, maybe a DUI or two, not really a consequence, right? But back then it was just a slap on the wrist. I graduated law school, top of my class, and ended up at a nice, prestigious law firm. In 89, he'd been practicing law for 4 years and got a third DUI. This one came with consequences. They found out I was a lawyer, notified the state bar. I was in jeopardy of losing my license to practice law. I received a private approval, conditioned upon completion of a mandatory AA meeting. So they made him come to the program. I was also sentenced to AA, but the court system required to complete a 1-year SB 38 program. He was at crossroads, decided just to do my time and then get back to life. I was going just to complete the year-long SB 38 program, that things would get back to normal. I started Harmony Group with my arms crossed and my mind closed. But at 30 days, when I announced I was no longer a newcomer, this big burly guy with a cowboy hat and boots and tattoos all over his body grabbed me by the scruff of my neck, dragged me up to the front, and something nice, it said something nice about me. He handed me a cheap aluminum coin with 30 days on the front, and it said, "Keep coming back." And on the back, something changed inside of me. This was the start of his spiritual journey in AA. He's been sober since October 21st, 1989. He has 2 home groups, and yes, I think that's allowed. Harmony Group in Ocean Beach. I'm reading this now, Harmony, so don't come to me. He is the one doing this. Where I got sober and spent a good 10 years on a daily basis. I'm back down there on Zoom now, 3 or 4 meetings per week, and Rancho Bernardo Early Birds at the Broken Yolk off Carmel Mountain Road. So if you want to find Tom, you know where he's at. He's either having breakfast or coffee in OB or off of Carmel Mountain Road, which now also meets on Zoom, and started called Just Say No to Corona. I have a Wednesday night men's meeting as well. That's kind of what Tom has put in writing, which we know with traditions and the principles of recovery, he will get in trouble, but I'll be in bigger trouble because I actually read it. But I have a thing about anonymity. I think it's important that we really take a hard look at it and understand that there are people who need a higher level of care. So with that, I'm going to turn this part of the podcast over to my buddy, my brother, Tom Sayer. So Tom, tell us, what's going on with you, brother?
Well, thanks, Scott. Thank you. This is really the first time I've ever done anything particularly like this. I've got a few years of recovery, and I think for the first time ever, it was like last year during the pandemic, I was asked to speak at a speaker meeting, and which I did, and then I was asked again at a different one, and this is maybe the third time that I've sort of told my story, if you will, in a larger group, as opposed to just in a meeting. So I'm a practicing attorney. I've been such since 1985, and and I was an attorney when I first was introduced to the program, but it was years before that, really, that I realized that I had a problem with alcohol. My story is that I kept going out in the evening with the intention of having maybe one beer and meeting up with friends and just having a beer, having a drink, having whatever. We did a lot of heavy drinking in high school and college, but this was after law school, and we were supposed to be grown up by now, and I would go out with the intention of just behaving myself, right, and having a drink or two with my friends, and I would always end up way overserved, and I'd be driving home trying to stay between the lines, and one night I was in that condition, and one of those PSAs came on the radio. It was the 10 signs that you might be an alcoholic, and they went through the list, check, and I sort of mentally told myself, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic, and I really admitted to my innermost self at that moment that I was an alcoholic. But that was years before I did anything about it. I didn't do anything about it because I didn't have those consequences that take most people down to the point of desperation, and that's usually where people get into recovery, is at the point of desperation. And I hadn't really reached the point of desperation yet, but so I got involved in recovery in a little different way through the court system. I was sentenced to go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's sort of my introduction to recovery.
So what do you do right now today? I mean, you mentioned some of it, but specifically, because I hope that people who watch this will say, I can relate to that. So what is it you do right now in your recovery to stay sober each day, especially with COVID and what's gone on, and as things start to loosen up, and we get back to meetings again, what is it you're doing each day that you might want to share with others?
Sure. So, I'm literally in my fifth decade of recovery. I think the 80s, the 90s, the noughts. Well, I guess maybe the fourth decade. I'm not sure exactly what it is that keeps me sober today, or what's going to keep me sober today. I really don't know exactly what it is. Whether it's going to some sort of a meeting in recovery, whether it's calling another alcoholic, or working with somebody else, whether it's doing some service work in being of service to somebody else, whether it's reading a book, whether it's maybe it's prayer and meditation. I don't know what it is today that's going to keep me sober, but all I know is that if I start subtracting one of those things little by little, I will find out which one it was that was keeping me sober. And as soon as I do, it'll be, I don't want to go there. So, so I do all that stuff, there's a 12 steps of recovery, and those 12 steps really outline the program that I follow, and I try and follow on a daily basis.
So is it safe to say then that the things that maybe you do today would have been things that were shared with you over time that you've adopted, and some of them are so organic right now that you don't think about them because it's been shared, not told, but it's been shared that if you do these things, your chances of staying sane, staying sober, and also staying clean are more than likely going to take place if you do them every day.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's an original thought since 1939, in this whole thing. I'm an attorney, and most of what I do is I draft legal documents, and I tell people all the time that, I have never written a word that I didn't steal from somebody, that I didn't copy from some other document, and maybe massage in my own fashion. But the original thought was way back when, and it's really just carrying it forward and following what works. If it worked before, it should work again. And my problem was I kept doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting different results. I kept on going out thinking, oh, I'm going to have one drink, I can handle it. No, I'm smart, I'm strong, I'm determined. All these things. And it's a two-part disease. There's this obsession of the mind that keeps telling me I'm different. It'll be different this time. I can handle it. I can do something different. And then as soon as I have the one drink, there's the allergy of the body kicks in, and there's no stopping. There's no defense against the second drink, or the third, or the fourth, or the fifth. But I figure I've got the semblance of a defense. I've got a fighting chance against the first drink, right? If I just do these things that have been told to me.
Right. And it's been made pretty clear by science that this disease that I know I have, and I believe you have, that it's like diabetes. You didn't wake up one day and say, oh gosh, I wish I could drink to the point where I might kill myself every day, or at least get arrested at a minimum. It's something in the brain that, when we self-medicate, it gets triggered. And to your point, staying stopped, it's easier not to start. But, that's one of those kind of things too. I remember people used to say, well, gee whiz, if you didn't pick up a drink, you wouldn't have a drinking problem, but it's not a moral failing, in my opinion. It is an addiction. It is an illness. It is a disease. And, self-medication, it's a nice tool, but the problem is you can't stay loaded 24/7 forever, because eventually what happens is you end up either dying or getting arrested or ending up in an institution or getting sober. So with that, what has changed in your program most recently with the pandemic that might be of interest to others as well? Because it's interesting. I personally, you've heard me share it. I like the Zoom concept. I still suffer from ADHD, so whenever I see 40 people making their bed, cooking, cleaning, making coffee, doing laundry, straightening it out, walking the dog. And, just the other day, somebody was on a ski lift with their snowboard, I think in Mammoth, going up the mountain. And there was somebody on a boat in Oregon, with his dog on the water. I mean, it was amazing to me. And I know this is going to change for some people, but I see, and in the treatment world, we're now using telehealth. Just like this, where somebody can actually at their home, they don't have to show their face, they don't even have to put their name up, but they can be part of treatment now in a very secure, safe, confidential way, anonymous way. And it's a way, I think, of getting people at least introduced to getting some help and support, and see what it looks like and get a sense for it, and do it quietly, if you will, kind of behind the curtain. Because to me, if it helps somebody engage and listen to others, there's a chance that hope and help really starts to amplify. So a couple of examples for you personally during the pandemic. And I know you mentioned you go to meetings a couple of days a week in Zoom, but be a little more specific and know that the people that might be listening right now may never have heard of these ideas, or the family might see this and they might think, maybe I can talk to my son and go, hey, let's find you a Zoom meeting. And, because they're trying to go to their son's recovery for them. And we're trying to encourage families to know that, that individual's got to be part of their own recovery.
Yeah. So March 16th of 2020, the world shut down, and churches closed their doors. The Broken Yolk closed its doors. There was no more meetings in person. I mean, really almost none. I mean, there were some people that were breaking the rules, but for the most part, it was sort of illegal to go to an AA meeting. And I was at the time in the middle of my spring semester teaching at San Diego State, and I was told that we had to teach the rest of the semester on this thing called Zoom, which I'd never heard of. And so sort of selfishly, I thought, well, I've got a couple of weeks to figure out how to do Zoom. Maybe I better try it out on my friends in this program. And so I created a Zoom meeting and invited everybody from my two meetings that, were in my bio. And lo and behold, the first day we had 25 people, that showed up. And then there was 50, and then there was 75, and we were having 75 people on a regular basis on this meeting that I called "Just Say No to Corona," and so yeah, and then things opened up again, and the rules slackened a little bit, and it was okay if you wore a mask and you only had 20 people in the room, and stuff like that, and so these meetings started getting alive again, and I experienced, as you will with just about any group, people with differing opinions. And there was one group where we tried to have a hybrid meeting, and it was a disaster. Absolutely. Now, there was these old guys in that meeting that just didn't want anything to do with it. Just no way. So that was an utter failure. And then I've seen other places where you go and there's a TV monitor up on the screen, and there's a computer set up, and it's completely unobtrusive. And people will go back and forth between the computer and the in-person, and it works beautifully. And then there's other places where they have they've just basically split the meeting, and they've got the Zoom people and they've got the in-person people. And it's just a tool. It's just another tool in this fight against this horrible disease of alcoholism and drug addiction. In the last year or two, I don't think I can count on both hands the number of people that have died as a result of drug and alcohol addiction that I know personally, that I knew, that I met, that I worked with, that I, went to meetings with, that were friends of mine or good friends of people I know. And it's crazy. Throughout my entire life, I can barely count on one hand the number of people that have died tragic deaths outside of drug and alcohol addiction. And I can't even remember all of them that have died of drug and alcohol addiction. So any tool that we can bring to the table is a valuable tool in my mind.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your family, if you want to share that. I know you've got a significant other, a couple kids, I believe. So tell us about your family.
Sure. Kathy and I met when I was in law school. Kathy met you a lot earlier than she met me. She was dating a good friend of yours back in the days when you were still, out there doing your thing. But she knew you a lot earlier than she knew me. But anyway, we met in law school and we dated for a couple of years, and then we got married, and we were married for 5 years before I took my last drink. And then we almost immediately, a couple months later, she got pregnant with my first child, and I remember taking a 1-year token at my morning meeting with my 1-year-old son, or 1-month-old son, in his car seat next to me. He was 1 month old, and I was taking a 1-year token. And, I was just up there with the tears flowing down my face, just, tears of gratitude, just saying, God willing, my son will never see his daddy drunk, and this is my older son. And then a couple years later, a year and a half later, my second son came along. Both of them are now, on their own, doing very well. And my older son is, on his second career, really, or third career, if you want to call it that. He was a computer consultant and worked crazy hours and made a ton of money. But he always loved to play online poker, and he was good at it, made money at it. And so now he's living in Vegas, playing in these tournaments, and about ready to go to law school. So he wants to be a lawyer also. And my younger son is a graduate of Notre Dame Law School and Providence College undergraduate, and he got a master's at Brown University. He's loves school, and he did very, very well. And now he's clerking for a judge in Washington, D.C., and just having a great time, and about to go into the Navy and become a Navy JAG officer. So that's my family. And my parents, my mom passed away almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago now. She had a long bout with Alzheimer's. Prior to that, my father's still alive. He's still doing okay, and I see him a couple times a week now, and he lives in Point Loma.
Very cool. So what do you like to do in your spare time? I mean, I know, but tell people.
I do a lot of hiking. Well, I do a lot of things. Right now, I've got a hobby it's called geocaching. It's like a high-tech treasure hunt where you take your GPS and you go out and you find stuff that people have hidden out in the world. And it's gotten me outdoors. It's gotten me on hiking trails all over San Diego County and beyond. And so I do a lot of hiking, and using that as sort of my platform to get outside. I recently brought home my mother's sewing machine, and now I call myself Tommy the Tailor. And I've been making little things out of using my mom's sewing machine, and that kind of goes back to my grandfather. When my grandfather passed away, he had a basement in Indianapolis full of tools, and I inherited basically most of his tools, and one of those was a little Singer sewing machine that had the foot pedal that operated it. except he was like the Tim Taylor of his day, and he rigged it up with a electric motor and a clutch, and so he took the old foot treadle sewing machine and turned it into the electric one. Anyway, so I inherited that way back when. We lost all his tools when our house burned down in the cedar fire. But so when my mom passed away, and it occurred to me that she had made a considerable amount of her own clothes and a lot of costumes that she made as well, and drapes in the house. I mean, she was constantly making things with her sewing machine. And this is a 60-year-old Swiss Elna sewing machine, and it runs like a charm. So I just take a lot of pride in the fact that it's still operating, and I'm able to, I haven't made anything real yet, just, silly little things. But
So are you like a seamstress, or you're more like a tailor?
I'm a tailor. Call me Tommy the Tailor.
That's funny.
But anyway, I enjoy doing that kind of stuff, and do-it-yourself stuff.
Yeah, good for you. And I know I saw some of your work in your patio. You made a nice table, and I asked you for one, I think, and you said, I'm 2 years out right now. The demand is so high for my work. But that was great. So what would you like to tell families, and look in the camera and just tell them, what is it they could be doing right now with someone they care about to help them, navigate, get to the next level, ask for help, get to help? What would you tell families based on everything you've learned, and you've seen a lot too with people coming in and out of the rooms like I have? And, a lot of the work I do today is because of what I've experienced in the rooms, the sadness, the joy, the success, and how to create a hybrid of how that works. And I'm a firm believer, one size doesn't fit all. And, everyone wants to think of themselves as being different. But what would you tell families? And maybe first with that, and the second part of that would be, what would you tell somebody right now who's suffering, with this disease of addiction, who might be on the brink of losing their job, losing a significant other? I mean, I want to go right there with you, because I know you've had a lot of experience in your own recovery. So what would you tell the family, and what would you tell the person who's suffering right now, how they can hear you and maybe do something with the information you're about to share?
Well, first of all, you can never get anybody drunk that's sober, and you can never get anybody sober that's drunk that doesn't want to. They have to want to do it. They have to be in that place. They have to hit their bottom. And everybody's bottom's different. Like you read in that bio, the elevator's going down, you can get off anytime. You don't have to go all the way to the bottom floor. You can get off anywhere you want. But at the same time, you have to want to get off. And so if the tendency that we have as human beings is we want to help people. We want to do what we can to help. And a lot of times what that looks like is, oh, well, Johnny's, if I don't give him $100, he won't be able to pay his rent. If I don't give him $1,000, he won't be able to, get his car fixed or whatever, So sometimes we are enabling, inadvertently, not, unintentionally, we are prolonging, the disease. And rather than, if you come to the realization that somebody has a problem, and you want to help them, the way to help them is to get all the people that they care about together, and confront this person and say, look, we love you. We want you to get better. We have to help you. We want to do everything we can to help you, but you've got to want it yourself. And I'm no expert at intervention or anything like that, but if you get to the point where you have done everything you can to try and get somebody in recovery, and they just resist, sometimes you just got to let them go and wait until they're ready, and then do everything you possibly can when they're ready, but until they're ready, I don't know. I know that I've experienced it myself, not, unknowingly prolonging somebody's misery, if you will, by doing what I thought was helping them. And really that wasn't much help at all. It didn't get them closer to getting clean and sober.
Okay. So do you want to add anything more to the specific part? Because I understand when you say, if somebody doesn't want to drink, you can't make them. If they want to stop, you can't make them either. But is there anything else you want to tell somebody that, it might be hearing this sober and just had one of the roughest nights they've had? What would you tell them they can do right now in the moment to help themselves? What would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, for one thing, call somebody like Scott, or call somebody. And what I would tell them is, you don't ever have to take another drink as long as you live, one day at a time. There's help. There are places you can go, and there were people that will help you, and that they won't charge you a dime to do it. I mean, there are places you can go where you will get the help that you need. And, and some people need, a 30-day, program or something. And, that's you might have to pay for that or whatever. I mean, that's fine. But, there are plenty of places to go for help, and, pick up the phone, call somebody, get somebody that knows what they are talking about, somebody that's been through it. I think the reason why these programs work is that the people that are providing the assistance have been through it. They know what they're talking about. They're not professors of recovery. We're all just alcoholics. We're all just people that have the same problem that you might have. And all we want to do, it helps us to help you, put it that way. For us to be of service, to help another person recover, there's nothing better for us than to have that, opportunity. So I don't know.
Good advice.
Maybe
Good
that's
advice.
not the best thing to say to somebody, but basically it's, you don't have to do this again. You don't have to, the cycle can end. There is an end to the cycle. And, it may not be easy. It may not be, it's simple, but it may not be easy. It may hurt for a little bit, but when you get to the other side, it'll be worth it.
I can, because I've been on this conversation with thousands of families, I can hear him saying that, well, you don't get it, Tom. You have no idea how stressful my life is, or, my wife is in the room breathing and it irritates me, or, it's sunny out, or it's cloudy, or, I make too much money and nobody wants to be my friend. I mean, you've heard the excuses as well. And I think that's what they are. They're just, it's an emotional armor that when you're ready to take that heavy load and set it down and listen to those who have gone before you, you have a much better chance of maybe hearing something that might ignite something in you. So I love that. Another question for you is, what is it we have not asked you today, or I have not asked you today, that you would like to be asked? Meaning, what is it you'd like to share that we haven't maybe talked about that we should have?
Well, I have to go back. Like I said, a pretty high bottom, and my life is like a dream today. It's real easy for me to look around and see, the house I live in, I have a car, I have a job, I have a wife, I have a family, I have all these things and everything just seems to be hunky dory, right? And it would be really easy for me to just say, oh, I don't have any problems anymore. So I really have to remember, and sometimes I think with all the tragedy that's happened this last year, which has been remarkably higher than normal, with the suicides that I've got 5 or 6 people I knew very, very closely that have committed suicide over this disease. And, it brings me back to my favorite uncle. My favorite uncle died of this disease. He was in and out of the rooms trying to get sober for decades. I mean, before I even got sober, he was in and out, in and out, in and out. And I was 10 years sober when he finally, killed himself, and with drugs and alcohol, alone in a hotel room, leaving behind a 7-year-old son and a wife. And it just, it broke my heart that I couldn't help him, that I wasn't there. I wasn't able to do whatever words I could have said, you know, like I say, you have to be ready, you know, and, but if you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then we're here. You're ready. When you get sick and tired of being sick and tired, then, you know, we're here. We'll be here for you. I don't know if that answers the question or not, but.
I think it does. And I think it's important for people to hear that as well. So I'm going to throw it over to Michael, because Michael always has the question that I can never think of, even if I had weeks to prepare. Michael, what's on your mind?
Well, I don't know if this is a good question, but Tom, I was just wondering if you could go back in time and change something in your life back before you were a casual drinker or addicted. What aspect of your life would you change in order to steer yourself clear?
Wow. I don't know if there's an answer to that. I don't know that there's, I mean, the way I look at it is that I was, you know, I was addicted from the first drink I took, really, you know. I don't know that I have the ability myself to have steered myself clear. I can take myself back to, you know, high school, college, or whatever, or first DUI or whatever. I can take myself back there and think, wow, you know, my life would have changed dramatically if I would have, you know, stopped my addiction at that point in my life. But I don't believe that there's some you know, magic formula other than, you know, admitting that I was powerless over this disease and doing something about it that could have changed the course of my life.
Yeah, that being an alcoholic is not a personality deficiency or whatever. Like you say, it's a disease, and but it has nothing to do with your ability to function as a normal person.
Right.
I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there was a year in law school, my first year of law school, when I didn't drink or do drugs hardly at all. I mean, I was on a routine. I got up every morning. I ate the same breakfast every morning. I ran 5 miles every morning, and then I went to class, and then I made my lunch in the morning and I took it to class with me. I had a motorcycle. I rode my bike to Cal Western Law School. I went to class. At lunch, I drove up to Balboa Park and I ate my tuna sandwich and orange slices, and then rode back to class for the afternoon. I mean, it was like a routine every single day for that entire, you know, first year of law school. But you know, then I just, you know, I wasn't doing it because I wanted to stop drinking so much. I was just scared to death that I wasn't going to make it through that first year of law school. So I don't know. That was a different time. That's like a completely different year of my life than the rest of my life has been. I've never really had that kind of focus since then.
Okay. Why don't you go ahead and give us your quote to see us out? And I just want to thank you real quickly that for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate you, you know, coming out and being honest and being so forthright with what you talked about. But go ahead and give us your quote, and we'll end the show.
Well, thank you so much. I mean, I've been addicted to this podcast since it first came out, and I've listened to every episode, and I really enjoy the podcast very much. And I'm very honored that you guys asked me to come on. So I hope this was of help to somebody out there. So, you know, my quote is tied to the sentence in the big book that is in the middle of page 132. There's 16 lines above it and 16 lines below it. There's 2 words in front of it and 2 words after it. And it says, "We absolutely insist upon enjoying life." And that's in the part where it talks about we are not a glum lot and what have you. And you know, I think, you know, often I, you know, when people come into the room and they're new and they wonder, why are we doing this? Why would we want to even do this stuff? I mean, this seems like a lot of work, and it doesn't seem like, why would we even bother with this? And for me, it's so I can live my life, live in my own skin, and have and not be looking over my shoulder constantly, and just be able to be free and live my life. So this is probably the last person that you'd want to emulate, but my quote is from an unlikely source, Hunter S. Thompson. Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well-preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke, thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, "Wow!" Anyway, I know that's probably heresy to most people. If you know what book that came from, it was just a ridiculous book about crazy drug, weekend in Las Vegas. But anyway, I've always liked that quote, and regardless of the source.